I was laughing at their ignorance. These are the words of Christ himself, narrating his own crucifixion in first person from the second treatise of the Great Seth. While the crowds below thought they were witnessing divine defeat, Christ watched from above, amused at the cosmic joke unfolding beneath him. Do you realize what this means? They were trying to kill the deathless, destroy the indestructible, defeat what transcends all victory and defeat. But here's the eureka moment that will shatter everything you thought you knew about suffering. They were trying to crucify the consciousness that was watching them try to crucify it. It's like trying to stab your own eyeball with your own sight. What follows represents perhaps the most radical theological departure in early Christian literature. A teaching so subversive that it transforms the crucifixion from Christianity's central tragedy into an unexpected divine comedy. The Gnostic texts preserved at Nag Hammadi present multiple independent accounts of this alternative understanding. The Gnostic Apocalypse of Peter, not to be confused with the Orthodox version describing tours of heaven and hell, was discovered in 1945 and presents a revolutionary vision that challenges conventional Christian doctrine at its foundation. Composed around 200 CE, this represents the kind of radical Christian thinking that Orthodox authorities would eventually suppress as heretical. These texts suggest a coherent alternative understanding that circulated widely in early Christianity. Christ as pure awareness, laughing at those who believe they can eliminate what exists beyond birth and death. I am Irrevelato. I create video essays about things few people are willing to discuss. I reveal the secrets you deserve to know, the lives and stories of luminaries and gods. Thank you for joining me. Now let's begin our exploration of the laughing Christ. Before Peter can understand this doubled reality, he must first learn to see differently. The Gnostic Apocalypse of Peter describes Christ instructing Peter to temporarily blind his ordinary perception by covering his eyes with his robe. When Peter initially sees nothing, then tries again, he experiences a profound shift. He feels fear mixed with joy as he perceives a new light greater than ordinary daylight. But this is not actually about covering physical eyes. Peter learned to see through what the text calls a different faculty entirely, the intellectual spirit. He must temporarily blind his ordinary perception to activate an entirely different mode of seeing. Then comes the core revelation. Peter receives a vision in which he simultaneously observes two distinct realities during the crucifixion, one figure suffering physical torment and another standing apart in a state of joy and amusement. Christ explains this doubled reality through a radical teaching. The one observed in joy represents the living Jesus, while the one experiencing physical suffering represents merely the fleshly covering or a substitute taking the punishment, while the true reality remains completely untouchable. The text treats the physical body like a detachable costume or temporary covering for something that transcends flesh entirely. The concept of a substitute represents a decoy taking the fall, while the real target remains completely untouchable. Think of it as the ultimate switcheroo. Everyone is attacking the wrong guy. The relationship between consciousness and form is described as the physical body existing as a likeness or image of the true being, much as a photograph resembles but does not constitute the person photographed. The authorities crucify the image, while the reality remains untouchable. The text describes consciousness, or the aware presence that animates physical form, but exists independently of it, as an intellectual spirit filled with radiant light. This represents pure awareness, luminous and untouchable by physical events. The laughter isn't cruel mockery either. It's the spontaneous response of consciousness recognizing its own indestructible nature. It's the laughter of someone watching a magician's trick after learning how it's done. This doubled vision establishes the central principle that reality operates on multiple levels simultaneously. The same event, the crucifixion, reveals itself as a tragedy when viewed from the material level and comedy, when perceived from the spiritual dimension. The same reality, two completely different experiences, happening simultaneously. You're living this doubled vision right now as you listen to these words. There's the you that's listening, analyzing and thinking about these ideas. And there's the you that's watching the you that's listening, analyzing and thinking. Two levels, same moment, same consciousness. The observer and the observed existing as one awareness, pretending to be two. The second treatise of the Great Seth presents the most detailed first-person account of the crucifixion from Christ's perspective, reading like divine stand-up comedy performed from the cross itself. Christ narrates his own execution with profound amusement at the cosmic misunderstanding unfolding around him. The text describes Christ explaining that he did not succumb to their plans as they had hoped, was not afflicted at all, and died only in appearance rather than reality. Picture the scene: Roman soldiers congratulating themselves on a job well done, while Christ hovers above, essentially saying, "Nice try, guys." Here's the cosmic shell game. Christ describes how they struck him with the reed, but it was Simon who bore the cross on his shoulder, another upon whom they placed the crown of thorns. While everyone's watching the suffering figure on the cross, the real Christ lounges and observes the show. The repeated emphasis on another hammers home the point. Wrong guy, wrong guy, wrong guy. And the punchline? Christ describes rejoicing in the height over all the wealth of the archons and the offspring of their error, their empty glory, and laughing at their ignorance. The entire crucifixion appears as the natural result of a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of reality. The laughter at their ignorance expresses compassion for those who perceive only partial reality. The ignorance represents the fundamental Gnostic category of spiritual blindness. The inability to distinguish between appearance and reality, temporary and eternal, form and consciousness. The Gospel of Philip reveals Christ as the ultimate expression of the universal trickster archetype, the divine shapeshifter who appears as exactly what each consciousness needs to encounter. The trickster appears across all cultures as the sacred comedian who disrupts the established order through wisdom disguised as foolishness. Christ, as cosmic trickster, explains the bewilderment surrounding his ministry, speaking in parables that simultaneously reveal and conceal truth, appearing to break religious law while fulfilling its deepest intention. The text describes how Christ adapted his appearance to each observer's capacity, appearing great to the great, small to the small, as an angel to angels, and as a human to humans. This principle explains why the authorities see a political threat to eliminate, the crowds see a spectacle to observe, the disciples see a teacher dying, and the spiritually awakened see divine consciousness demonstrating its transcendence of all form. Meanwhile, the Acts of John presents Christ appearing to John in a cave during the crucifixion, teaching the true meaning of the cross, while the crowds witness what they interpret as divine death. This simultaneous occurrence reveals the multidimensional nature of spiritual reality. Christ establishes the spatial metaphor of higher and lower levels of reality. To those operating from the material level, Christ appears as a suffering victim. To the spiritually prepared disciple, Christ appears as a teacher and a revealer. Christ then reveals a cross of light as the true mystery behind the physical crucifixion. This luminous cross represents the cosmic structure through which consciousness manifests into apparent multiplicity, while remaining essentially unified. The wooden cross on Golgotha serves as a shadow or symbol of this eternal spiritual reality. The teaching reveals this cross of light as the fundamental principle underlying all spiritual categories, sometimes called logos, sometimes mind, sometimes Jesus, sometimes Christ, sometimes door, way, bread, seed, resurrection, Son, Father, Spirit, life, truth, faith, or grace. Each term represents a different aspect or function of the same underlying reality. The Acts of Thomas contains a declaration that reveals why the crucifixion can only be an appearance rather than reality. Consciousness describing itself as the light over all things, present everywhere, identifying with the totality of existence rather than any particular form within existence. Split a piece of wood and find it there, lift up a stone and discover it there. The consciousness reading these words right now is the same consciousness speaking from that ancient text. The awareness aware of your heartbeat is the same awareness that animated Christ's heartbeat. The I am that experiences your life is identical to the I am that experienced the crucifixion. There is only one consciousness in the entire universe, and you are it. This means every person you meet is you in disguise. Every animal you see is you in disguise. Every tree, every rock, every star is you temporarily forgetting that it's you. This omnipresence explains Christ's laughter perfectly. How do you nail omnipresence to a cross? How do you kill what animates existence itself? How do you defeat what includes both victory and defeat as movements within its own infinite nature? The cosmic joke is that consciousness is trying to hurt itself and then laughing when it realizes the impossibility. Modern quantum mechanics provides an unexpected parallel to this Gnostic understanding. The measurement problem demonstrates that observation fundamentally determines what appears in reality. Different observations of the same quantum system produce different outcomes, because observation itself participates in creating what it observes. Applied to the crucifixion, this suggests that the authorities' observation of Christ's death literally creates that reality within their experiential framework, while Christ's observation from divine consciousness creates an entirely different reality, both coexisting without contradiction, because they emerge from different levels of observation. Contemporary near-death experiences often report remarkably similar perspectives. Floating above dying bodies, feeling profound peace or even amusement at the medical drama below, and recognizing the essential self as distinct from the body everyone struggles to save. The Laughing Christ reveals the divine sense of humor that Orthodox religion systematically excludes. This divine comedy finds its philosophical predecessor in Democritus of Abdera, known as the laughing philosopher, who reportedly laughed at human folly because he recognized the fundamental joke of existence: atoms dancing in the void, creating temporary arrangements that believe themselves permanent. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this divine comedy perhaps better than any philosopher since the ancient Gnostics. His concept of eternal recurrence parallels the Laughing Christ's perspective. The eternal recurrence is the idea that you would willingly live your exact life infinitely again. When consciousness recognizes its eternal nature, every temporal experience, including crucifixion, becomes simultaneously tragic and comic. The laughter expresses both the joy of excellent performance and the relief of remembered identity. Christ laughs like an actor who has played Hamlet so convincingly that he momentarily forgot his real name, then suddenly remembers who he actually is. The death of Hamlet cannot touch the actor. The crucifixion of the Christ body cannot harm the Christ consciousness. The Gospel of Philip delivers the essential teaching about resurrection. Those who say the Lord died first and then rose are in error, for he rose first and then died. If one does not first attain the resurrection while living, physical death brings nothing. This reveals resurrection as recognition of your deathless nature that must occur before physical death rather than after it. Christ demonstrates this principle perfectly. His recognition of himself as eternal consciousness precedes his physical crucifixion, allowing him to experience the cross as a demonstration rather than destruction. If you remain identified exclusively with form, then the dissolution of form means the end of your sense of existence. But if you have already recognized your nature as consciousness itself, then the dissolution of form becomes as inconsequential as taking off clothes. The Laughing Christ teaching provides a revolutionary approach to human suffering. The part of you that notices your pain exists as distinct from the pain itself. The awareness that observes your thoughts differs from the thoughts it observes. The witnessing presence that knows your emotions transcends the emotions it witnesses. This witnessing awareness shares Christ's essential nature and therefore shares access to Christ's perspective. Physical discomfort continues to occur in the body. Emotional turbulence continues to arise in the psyche. But you begin to identify with the spacious awareness within which these experiences occur, rather than with the experiences themselves. Christ's laughter represents the joy available to awareness when it stops mistaking itself for its temporary contents. Every moment of suffering offers an opportunity to discover this transcendent dimension of your being. Every difficulty becomes an opportunity to discover what in you remains untouched by the difficulty. Every loss reveals what in you transcends loss. Every death points toward what in you continues beyond death. The laughter emerges from profound relief at discovering your invulnerability. You realize that you have been suffering unnecessarily, fearing the loss of what remains eternal, protecting what transcends all need for protection, and defending what exists beyond all attack. You have been the indestructible pretending to be destructible. The fundamental absurdity becomes so obvious that laughter erupts spontaneously. The delighted recognition of the cosmic prank consciousness has been playing on itself. You are the magician who got so caught up in your own illusion that you forgot you were performing the trick. Every moment of suffering in your life is consciousness performing alchemy on itself. The pain dissolves false identity. The recognition coagulates true nature. You're not a victim of suffering. Your consciousness using suffering as a laboratory to discover what can't be dissolved. The ultimate joke is that you have always been what you seek, always possessed what you think you lack, and always been free from what appears to imprison you. The search for God, meaning, security and happiness, represents consciousness playing hide-and-seek with itself, pretending to be lost so it can experience the joy of being found. The game is rigged. You can't actually lose. You are simultaneously the hider, the seeker, the one who gets found, and the joy of finding. The whole game exists within you as you, for your own infinite entertainment. The next time you suffer, remember this. Somewhere, from a perspective you cannot yet see, Christ is still laughing. He laughs at the magnificent illusion that you could ever believe you are anything other than the deathless awareness, watching the pain arise and pass away. But here's the final revelation that will end your seeking forever. You are not watching Christ laugh from the cross. Christ is you, laughing at your own magnificent performance as someone who forgot they were Christ. You are the infinite masquerading as the finite so perfectly that you forgot your own true face. The game is over. You can stop seeking now. You are what you have always been looking for. And somewhere in the eternal now, the sound of cosmic laughter echoes through all dimensions as consciousness recognizes itself once again. If you enjoyed this exploration, make sure to like, subscribe, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of my video essays. Share it with others who would benefit from these ideas, and share your ideas in the comments section. The best insights often come from the audience, not from the creator. And if you want to support Irrevelato, which is an independent project funded solely by the people who find value in my work, you will find a link to my Patreon page in the description below. On Patreon, depending on the tier you choose, you can watch all of my videos without being interrupted by ads, participate in monthly quandas, access my exclusive videos, have monthly face-to-face calls with me personally, commission video essays on topics you love the most, and even receive full mentorship on everything I'm doing behind the scene. Either way, thank you for being here and staying until the very end. You are part of those who are not afraid of depth and uncomfortable truths. And for that, you are amazing. See you next time.